I'm going to describe really quick the Vanny that we got in Security Breach. A security guard at a Freddy Fazbear entertainment location that pretends to be a normal employee, but appears to make children go missing when wearing their favorite rabbit suit. Does that sound like anyone else we know? Instead of taking the series in a new direction, Vanny became an excuse to let William come back, like he always does. Recently, something called the Mimic has been taking the FNAF community by storm. And it just might be the new main villain of FNAF. And this is great news for the storyline going forward. Initially, the main draw of the FNAF franchise, aside from its novel premise, was the mystery of the lore, the desire to know more about the events that led up to the situation at hand. This type of storytelling is known as in medias res, which is Latin for in the middle of things. The story starts out in the middle, while the rest of the series jumps around the timeline, giving us the pieces of the timeline to fit together as best as we can. The story throws us into a time where William is already a murderer, and his existence is only implied by the missing children's incident. Believe it or not, he may actually be in FNAF 1. In an unexpected way, I'm not implying that he's the phone guy, but he may be there. In FNAF 2's minigames, we actually see him for the first time. And when I say we see him, I mean we see him doing his thing straight away. In Foxy Go Go Go, he's just standing there, menacingly, looking a bit like Cookie Monster, but in the Save Them and Save Him minigames, he's a bit more active. In Save Him, we watch him pull up in his purple car and murder Henry Emily's daughter. In Save Them, he attacks Freddy, in his most iconic design, this time with a security badge, implying that he's a security guard at the pizzeria, which is very comforting. The building goes on lockdown because
someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one.
Which of course was William using his favorite fursona and presumably murdering 5 more kids. In FNAF 3, of course, William takes an even more active role. We see that the brand has become a bit of an urban legend, and this is mostly thanks to William and his wacky misadventures. This leads to the opening of an attraction called Fazbear Frights, which showcases a collection of old Freddy's memorabilia, including
a real one.
Each end-of-night cutscene shows William dismantling the animatronics, one by one. He already took everything from them, but he has discovered that he can still take more. After all 4 animatronics have been disassembled, after you complete Night 5, you play as the spirit of one of the children, and the 4 other spirits are there too. He's cornered by the spirits of those that he destroyed, and gets himself springlocked. The true identity of the one that's been hunting us for the past 5 nights is revealed at the perfect time. We hear that all of the back rooms, one of which William was hiding in when he got springlocked, were sealed off 30 years ago, adding to the horror of his terrible fate and hinting that he may have been there all along, even in the first game. The next 2 games establish some important themes that will be important later on in the video. FNAF 4, as confusing and controversial as its lore may be, establishes William's status as a less than ideal father, whose creations ultimately destroy those around him, starting with his youngest son. He accepts the role of the destroyer and starts experimenting with illusion technology, creating the nightmare animatronics, and later on he starts truly harming others for the sake of putting his son back together. He destroys others' lives to try to salvage one. Sister Location shows us the lengths that he's willing to go to bring his son back. He makes twisted, segmented, metallic things designed to lure and capture children so he can take everything from them, and then some. Once again, his creation takes the life of one of his children. He told Elizabeth not to get close to baby, but he built it to appeal to children, and he did it just a bit too well. In the actual present events of the game, Michael, William's last son, is destroyed by William's creations, but he continues living. Finally, in FNAF 6, Henry brings an end to all of it. He knows that these hybrids of machine and soul will never stop roaming and destroying, so he ends everything, all at once, in one place. Justice is mostly served to William, and the spirits are almost put to rest. The way that the story of Afton is portrayed in the games, it's kind of what made its main form of storytelling. Vague exposition of important events through small hints and slightly less vague flashbacks and cutscenes, getting more and more explicit and fleshed out with each game, but also introducing more and more questions. This method of storytelling worked extremely well for the first 6 games. The first 6 games. Vanny is very different from William in one key way. We start with the beginning of her story. She is introduced as a game developer working on the game that Fazbear Entertainment is making in Help Wanted. And as she playtests the game, her mind appears to be gradually corrupted by Glitchtrap, and we get to see the whole thing take place. We hear her through the tapes that we collect, and her motives change over time, and we eventually realize that Afton has already taken control of her mind. In the FNAF AR emails, we also see the concern of her creepy coworker Lewis as he watches Vanessa search up things like how to induce compliance in human subjects, and help, and how far can a human being be cut in half before losing consciousness, clearly showing the back and forth that her mind is going through between William's control and her own control. And then we get the security breach. In the trailers, she clearly wants to help Gregory, she sounds very compelling, and it implies that she's either a really great actor or that she slips in and out of the Vanny persona. She had been built up over the past 2.5 years. This is where she becomes her own character. Vanny, corrupted by Glitchtrap, committing new atrocities for new reasons, with new characters and a new story, and I think it's safe to say that the character we got in Security Breach was nothing like the one that was planned or teased. Vanny became an excuse to let William come back one more time. Now that we've reviewed the villains that built up to the Mimic, let's explain its backstory before I unabashedly praise its existence. In the Tales from the PizzaPlex story Nexi, a man named Edwin loses his wife Fiona as she's giving birth to David, their son. He's too busy working for Fazbear Entertainment to properly care for his son, so he makes an endoskeleton that uses AI to copy things David does to give him someone to play with. One day, David's ball rolls out into the road, and when David runs to get it, he gets hit by a car. Edwin is devastated until he sees an ad on TV for Fazbear's new product, the Friendly Face, which is an animatronic recreation of a dead pet, and he tries to get one of his son David, but it fails horribly and the creepy thing follows him until he loses his... Oh, wait, sorry, wrong FNAF book, sorry. Edwin actually sees the Mimic copying David even after David's gone, and his sorrow turns to rage, and he lashes out against the thing and beats it viciously. The only problem is he just taught the Mimic violence. This all takes place back in the 80s, and the Mimic becomes the new villain in the epilogue stories in each Tales from the PizzaPlex book, ripping people apart left and right. It's only mimicking what it's been taught. It has evolved into a very intelligent AI that can conform to any exoskeleton, and it can drain power from other animatronics. Is this supposed to be exactly what happens in the games if the Mimic does turn out to be canon to the games? I don't think so. Others like Rytos and John from FNAF have theorized that Edwin and David are stand-ins for Henry and Charlie respectively. If this is true, then Henry built the Mimic for Charlie and lashed out at it after her death. The damaged Mimic was later found by Fazbear Entertainment and scanned into the Help Wanted game. Many of the current fears in real life over artificial intelligence are that since it has access to stories and articles showing fear about the capabilities of AI and how it might use those to take over the world, it will learn from those cautionary tales and begin mimicking this evil AI behavior. This is exactly what may have happened in Help Wanted, except instead of learning how to be evil through stories of evil AI, it learns from the urban legends and true stories about William Afton and begins mimicking them. This is what the Glitchtrap virus is, and this is what escapes the game by corrupting Vanessa after a failed attempt to control Jeremy. It uses Monty to decommission Glamrock Bonnie to then use his parts, because it knows that it has to be a rabbit, like William Afton was. The Mimic is the virus that infects the PizzaPlex and the animatronics within. Now, some of you might be thinking that this is just another excuse to continue William Afton's story arc, but the Mimic isn't a digital manifestation of William's consciousness, like Glitchtrap would have been. The Mimic is an indirect consequence of the trauma and pain caused by William, another one of his creations that destroys everyone around it. Trauma tends to cause cycles, and the Mimic has taken up the purpose of continuing the cycle that it has witnessed, that it has downloaded. This is a much cooler way to continue the ripples left by William without just bringing him back for a third, a fourth, or a fifth time. Let me know in the comments if you want the Mimic to be a part of the game timeline, if you absolutely detest it, and if you're still watching, thank you so much. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. This has been the Night Guard, and I'll see you tomorrow.